it's Mark Bossard. I'm here with Bernie Pawlik, Pawlik Automotive in Vancouver, Vancouver's best auto service experience, 25 times voted best auto repair in Vancouver by their customers. And we're talking cars. How you doing, Bernie?
Doing very well.
So today's victim is a 2012 Volvo XC90. What was going on with this vehicle?
So this vehicle was brought to our shop with the complaint of the check engine light on, blinking sometimes, and the engine running rough.
So what's does the blinking light mean?
The blinking check engine light means that the engine is misfiring and can possibly damage the catalytic converter. It's basically the definition is a catalyst damaging engine misfire. So it's something to take extremely seriously. I'd just say statistically, based on my experience in the business, 99% of the time when you have a blinking check engine light, if you don't fix it like immediately, you're going to be replacing your catalytic converters at some point in time. And they're expensive. And sometimes it might only blink a little bit for a while. And then a month later, 2 months later, 6 months, you'll get codes for a cat inefficiency. So it's very, very, very important with a blinking check engine light to fix it. If the check engine light is just on solid and the engine runs fine, you've got some more time. You should get it fixed and diagnosed, but if it's blinking, fix it.
Bad stuff.
Yeah.
Right. So let's take a look at this vehicle right now. Here's our Volvo. So what'd you do to go ahead and start diagnosing this?
So our first step was to drive the vehicle to verify the client's concern, which we did. Found the engine was running extremely rough, clearly misfiring. The check engine light was on. And then from there, we connect a scan tool to the vehicle computers. We do a full vehicle system scan. And from there, we found a number of trouble codes. So this gives us our first direction of diagnosis. I'll just bust the myth right now. This doesn't tell us what's wrong with the vehicle. It just tells us where the problem is. And you can see where the yellow arrow is pointing. We had a misfire in cylinder 1, 2, 3, and 6, plus a random misfire code, which is just something that if the vehicle picks up a misfire, sometimes it'll set that, plus 2 catalytic converter efficiency codes, which means the 2 catalytic converters are most likely damaged beyond repair. Well, repair is replacement, really. So the first step in this diagnosis is to figure out what's causing the misfire. And sometimes one cylinder will cause a number of cylinders to set misfire codes. So from there, the codes are cleared. And the next step is we can actually run the engine and monitor the misfires. Most engines, we can do this. You can on a Volvo and see which cylinder is misfiring. This is a 6-cylinder engine. And from running the engine, it's pretty clear that number 2 cylinder was misfiring pretty well continuously. That means that misfire means it's not actually firing. It's not working properly. So from there, usually what happens is ignition coils go bad. If you can just look at the picture in the next one, Mark, of the engine. We look at the top of the engine. There are 6 ignition coils here. You've got 5 of them covered, but anyways, the number ones, yeah, there you go. We got them all. Most of the time, an ignition coil will go bad and cause a misfire. And so we have a tester, or we might actually swap coils from one cylinder to the other. And I always like to pull the spark plugs out to see what the condition of that is. So went to number 2 cylinder right away, pulled the coil out, pulled the spark plug, and found our problem right away. That spark plug on the left, that's from number 2 cylinder. If you want to look at the spark plug on the right, that's an old spark plug, but still in pretty good shape. That sort of curved thing on the top, that's called the ground electrode. It's got a slight bit of deposit on it, but not abnormal. These are quite likely original spark plugs. But when you look at the one in the center, you can see a lot of deposit on the ground electrode, and the actual center electrode is a piece of porcelain that's cracked and broken. So that's a very bad thing. That'll cause a misfire for sure. That's number 3 cylinder plug. But if we look to the left, that's number 2. That's actually black, basically covered in oil. And you can see that the combustion process of the spark plugs is much different. Mark, go to the other picture of the spark plugs. This is, a good tool for reading the health of an engine. You just take a moment to look at these spark plugs. You can see that the 4th one from the left is actually pretty good. That one's actually a fairly healthy old spark plug, but you can see the ones on the left side. Unfortunately, the picture's a little blurry, but even number 1 cylinder plug is not very good. 2 and 3 are not good. And number 6. And interestingly enough, there was misfire codes for all of those cylinders. So the misfire counter is pretty accurate. It found the issues. So, okay, what do we do from here? Do we just put a set of spark plugs in? No, there's a reason why these spark plugs are looking so bad. Most likely there's too much oil getting into the engine from somewhere. It's burning it and causing the spark plugs to foul. So the next step, of course, is to do a compression test on the engine. And this checks the pressures of each cylinder. They should be 175, 200 pounds, maybe a tiny bit less might be okay. So we did a compression test and found that number 2 cylinder was at 5 PSI, which is basically dead. Number 6 was down at 75. The rest of them were pretty good in spite of the oil fouling on some of them. But we basically come to the conclusion the engine needs to be replaced. It's just that simple. So either repaired, replaced, rebuilt, replaced with a used engine. There are many different options. And we're still working with the client on that. But also at the end of the day, the catalytic converters, those codes will not likely be gone once we get the engine running. So will it run fine with the bad converters? Possibly. But, there'll be a check engine light on and your exhaust emissions will be higher than usual.
So a difficult discussion and decision for the owner because this is not an inexpensive repair for a 2012 vehicle.
No, it's not. And I'll say the other thing that I found interesting about this particular diagnosis is these fouled spark plugs, very unusual for a Volvo. I mean, we work on a lot of Volvos in our shop, never ever see spark plugs like this. I mean, I actually did the diagnosis myself on this, and I've been working on cars for I don't know how long, 40 years or something. And I mean, this takes me back like 20 years or longer when you'd get engines in like mid 80s and 70s, GMs or any brand. I'm not picking, you pull a spark plug out, it's all oil fouled. And this is not something we see very often in a modern engine, let alone a Volvo. So I don't know why this occurred like this, but nonetheless, it needs to be fixed now.
Wouldn't the owner have noticed that the vehicle was needing to have a lot of oil put into the engine? Or wouldn't you see that there's blue smoke coming out of the back with it burning so much oil?
Yeah, good questions. I didn't talk to the owner myself, and there wasn't any mention in the initial complaint of, hey, I have to add a lot of oil to the engine. So I don't know about that. But the blue smoke, you would think it would be blowing blue smoke, but in this case, it wasn't. Engines are interesting. Sometimes you can go through oil or you can have this kind of fouling problem without actually consuming a lot of oil. It's just getting into the wrong spot a little too often. But you would think that you'd have to be adding a fair bit of oil or you would see smoke, but it doesn't always happen. So the key in this one is the blinking check engine light. And at that point, I mean, the engine was probably already done, but there may have been some earlier symptoms. We had worked on this vehicle in the past and never noticed any problems with it. So sometimes things can come up quickly and damage can happen fast for sort of no reason.
So there you go. If you're looking for service for your Volvo in Vancouver, the guys to see are Pawlik Automotive. You can book your appointment online at pawlikautomotive.com or you can call them at 604-327-7112 to book your appointment. You have to book ahead. They're always busy. Pawlik Automotive in Vancouver, BC, Canada. Thanks so much for watching and listening. Thanks, Bernie.
Thank you, Mark. And thanks for watching.